when you be of the thinking that I am a bit of the shrunken version of the self, you will be seeing and being of the sensing that there's something bigger for you. You will be knowing that does not feel like it is the fullness of myself. You will be sensing the fearness and the scaredness to be interacting out in of the universal construct and being out into of the universe. You'll be feeling very much of the shrinkingness and wanting to be of the hidingness. But when you are feeling in of the self, you are full to be of the expression of who you truly are. You will be feeling of the confidence to be of the expression of who you truly are. You will be feeling much more of the happiness, much more of what you'd be calling of the calmness and of the relaxedness. And you will not be sitting there in the worriness and of the fearness of what might be causing, might be happening in and of around you.
Mm. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Galactic Guidance. And hello, Marcus.
Hi, great to be here. Oh, feeling a bit boppy today.
That's a good thing. Boppy's good.
Boppy's good.
Good
Yes,
energy.
Boppy's good. So, yes.
So excited to bring another channeling session in with your spirit mentor, Ahmed.
Yes, yes, it's good. It's good connecting in and just hearing stuff and getting a different perspective maybe and opening our eyes and our consciousness to, bigger and more amazing concepts and thoughts and ideas. And just to give a different perspective, I think is the key.
Okay. So before we
Yeah.
go into it this time, do you want to
Yes.
give a little brief explanation of the process that you now do to connect into your spirit mentor, Ahmed?
Yeah. So I suppose I just, close my eyes and just drop into it. And in that process, just call the energy in and then just give the energy permission to utilize me as a, channel and to come through me. And then my process is just get out of the road and allow it to happen. And generally I connect in with the first thing that's going to be said. And then after that, I don't really connect in with it after that. I tend to just disappear.
Yeah. So you are what we call an unconscious channel in the sense that
Yeah,
you're not consciously there. You're just transmitting the
yeah,
transmission.
pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, I hear bits and pieces. So often if there's a thread that's running through, like a very distinct thread, I might pick up little bits of it. But the majority of it, I couldn't repeat back. Straight
Yeah.
after, I couldn't repeat back what was said. I might be able to grab a couple of things and said, look, I heard this or I heard that, and then expand on it from my point of view, right? But other than that, I tend to stay out of it.
Okay. So let's go. Let's do this.
Let's get me out of it, hey?
Yeah. Let's get
That
you out
sounds
of the
like a
way.
good thing. Yeah, why not? Why not?
And if you're interested in the story of how Marcus started this journey of channeling this transmission with his spirit mentor, spirit guide, Ahmed, just go back to episode 1 and you'll hear the full story. This didn't just start last week. This started a good 3 decades ago. And I just love these discussions that we have with Ahmed and that Marcus channels. They're just beautiful discussions and very eye-opening and heart-expanding.
It is with of the much of the loveness that we are being in of this the present here, Miss Eleni. We are much of the excitement to be in this of the presence. And we must be allowing of the channel to be much of the safetyness. He has been worrying about of the safety of being of the sharing and allowing us to be of the coming through. But we are here to be of the information that he is much of the safetyness, and we are here to be of the looking after as we do being in of through of this process, Miss Eleni.
Interesting that you bring in this concept of safety. Uh, so was there a concern that that this is not safe by the channel? Is that what you're saying?
There is much of what you'd be calling of the anxietiness about being of the sharing and being of thinking that he is being of the unusualness and being of the strangeness. He has been being of the worrying nature that this is being of the accepted and being of the received in of the way that we are being of the sharing. But we are here to be saying that this is much of the safetyness, because we are here to be of the looking after. We are just being of the sharing of the information and to be of the assistance in the expanding of the consciousness. So we are sharing of the concepts to be of the assistance to expand of the consciousness. What you must be understanding is this is what is happening in of the universe. The universe is in of an expansive nature, not necessarily what you're being thinking of just expanding from a space point of the view, but from a consciousness point of the view. The universe itself is a living of the breathing consciousness, much like you have in your waterness, in the what you'd be calling of the reefs. These are not just of the rocks, these are just not of the colorfulness, but these are living of the breathingness. And you will be finding that the universe is exactly the same. It is of a living and a breathing nature, not of the staticness, not of the objectness, but of a living and of the breathing nature. So we are here to be of the assistance of the expansion of this living and of this breathing. What we be calling the consciousness.
Beautiful. I totally understand as to why Marcus would feel concerned, and it's very courageous that he does put himself out there and he allows you to speak through him. Very, very, very courageous indeed. And thank you for reassuring the channel that it is safe, because your messages are very important during this time. So, Ahmed, what is the message that you would like to bring forward today?
Mm, There's much being of the concernedness around the feeling of the safetyness. Many are being of the feeling of the worriness, feeling not of the safetyness. What you must be understanding is there are many of the levels of this safetyness, and when you are being of the under stressedness, when you are being of the under worriness, when you are not of the sureness, you are falling back into the practical of the physical safety of being of the aliveness. There is an inbuilt process within of the human form to be keeping of the aliveness. This keeping of the aliveness, being of the does become of the activated when you are being of the what you're calling of the stressness, when you are being of the tiredness, when you are being of the rundownness, when you are being of the struggle, you are living in of the anxiety, of the survivalness. But this is not of the case. You are it is of the time for you to be expanding from a consciousness point of view out of the concerns of the being of the unliveness, being of the being of the scaredness and not of the safetyness. There is much that you need to be understanding about this concept of the safety. When you are expanding into of the consciousness, when you are expanding into of the fullness of the reality of your existence, you are seeing that there is no need to be of the worrying of the safety, that you can be of the expressing, you can be of the aliveness, you can be of the what you'd be calling putting yourself out into of the worldness. One of the biggest of the worries is when you are sharing of the self, you are thinking that you are not of the safetyness, that you can be of the, you can be, what do you be calling of the pushing down, being of the shrunkenness, being of the not worthiness, being of the eventually of the unaliveness. But this is not of the truth. When you are being of the expanded nature, when you are breathing in of the expansion, you will connect into the ultimateness of the safety aspect of what we are being of the talking about. In this space, you are filling up the fullness of who you are. In of the fullness of who you are, you will be experiencing the most amount of the concept of the safetiness. This safetiness is much of the assuredness of much of the knowingness. For when you are feeling of the confusedness, when you are feeling of the worriedness, when you are feeling of this anxietyness, you are feeling that you are not of the safetyness. You have constructed the environment where there is many things that are making you not feel of the safetyness. But we're here to tell you that when you are expanding into the fullness of who you are, when you are living in the expanded geometry of the consciousness, you are feeling much more of the safetyness. You are feeling much more of the sureness and not of the not feeling of the safetyness, not of the worriedness. There are many of you that spend many a time in of the worriedness, in of the concerns for of the safetyness. Many of you are spending much time there. What we would be inviting you to be doing is to step into the expandedness of consciousness and knowing that you have nothing to be of the worriedness for. There is nothing to be of the scaredness about. But you need to be feeling into that space. For in that space, it is like you'd be pushing anything away that is that might be making you be feeling of the worriedness. When you are not the being of the pushing out of your consciousness and an expanded nature, you are of the restriction nature. You are of the nature that is inviting of the fearness in, of the scaredness in. But when you are pushing of the outness, when you are expanding into of the fullness of who you are, then you are metaphor like a pushing of the scaredness away. You are pushing of the frightenedness away. You are deflecting of the frightenedness. But when you are of the shrinkingness, when you are of the restrictionness, when you are not being of the feeling in of the self, you are automatically activating of the fearness and of the scaredness and of the worriness. You are liking of the shrinking. Very much like when of the sun is being of the setting and the flowers start to shrink back into of themselves. But when the sun is coming out, they are of the expanded nature. This is what we wish for you to be knowing about. You are being of the expanded nature in any given of the moments. When you are of the expanded nature, you're expanding into of yourself. You are sharing of the wisdom of the expanded nature into of yourself. This is where you can be feeling much of the safetyness when you are being of the expansion into of the self. Does this have the making sense, Miss Eleni?
Yes, so what I'm hearing you say, Amit, is that, we feel unsafe when we are disconnected from our true selves. But once we are connected to who we really are, then we feel safe because that's who we really are. So it's about reconnecting to who we really are. Can you give some practical tips about the feeling of safety and how to promote that feeling within us?
When you are being of the expanded nature into the fullness of who you are, you will be experiencing the, that there is what would we be calling of the shield around you, that there is a field around you that you can be of the expanding into. Once you're expanding into this field of self, you can then begin to be of the expansion out from that field of self, expanding the field of self. But most of you are not living into the field of self. You are a restricted version of this living into the field of self, and therefore there is a gap between you and the field of self, the edge of self. When you are not fulfilling into the self, you cannot be of the expanding in of the self. Therefore, when you have this, what I'll be calling of the gap between the self and the shell of the self, the expanded nature of the self, this gap is causing of the fearness and the worriness and of the concernedness, because you are thinking, what is filling up this space? And what you will be finding is things be then filling up this space, things that maybe you're not wishing to be filling up this space, and then you get into of the worriness and of the concernedness. So we'd be asking you from much of the practicalness to breathe into this self, to breathe into of the self. When you are being of the meditating, you can be sitting and you can be thinking, where is the field of the self? Am I filling up of the field of the self? And if I am not feeling like I'm filling up the field of the self, for me to breathe into the field of the self, deep breathing into the self and be of the expanding of the energetic nature of the self of the field of self. Once you are touching of the field of self, you'll be realizing that nothing can be of the penetrating into of you. Nothing can be interfering with of you. And then you can be pushing out of the field of self in an ever of the expansive consciousness nature of the reality of the universe. So you must be feeling into, am I feeling into the shell of the self, the energy field of the self? And if I am feeling that there is of the gapness, if I am in of the scaredness and of the worriness and of the not feeling of the safetyness, then I know that I'm not feeling into of the field of the self. For when I am filling in of the field of the self, there is no space for of the worriness and of the scaredness, of the fearness, of the not of the safetyness. When you are filling in of to the self, you are pushing anything that is disharmonic, that is not in of the resonant frequency alignment with the self, is being of the deflected out. It is much like creating of a mirror. When you are filling into the fullness of the self, you are pushing out and deflecting and reflecting any disharmonic resonant frequencies that might be coming in onto the self and trying to fill up of the voidness that is existing between you and the fullness of the self. This is what we'd be imagining. This is what we'd be seeing. If you could be seeing of the energetic nature of the reality, you would be seeing the spaces in between. This is where you are be finding of the issues when you are not feeling the fullness of the self.
Okay, some beautiful advice there when we get into meditation to ask where is the field of self and to set that intention of expanding into the field of self, because the intention is so important. Are there any final words you would like to say, Amit, before we bring Marcus back for a discussion?
When you be of the thinking that I am a bit of the shrunken version of the self, you will be seeing and a being of the sensing that there's something bigger for you. You will be knowing that does not feel like it is the fullness of myself. You will be sensing the fearness and the scaredness to be interacting out in of the universal construct and being out into of the universe. You'll be feeling very much of the shrinkingness and wanting to be of the hidingness. But when you are feeling in of the self, you are full to be of the expression of who you truly are. You will be feeling of the confidence to be of the expression of who you truly are. You will be feeling much more of the happiness, much more of what you'd be calling of the calmness and of the relaxedness. And you will not be sitting there in the worriness and of the fearness of what might be might be happening in and of around you. This is much of the alignment space, much of the resonant space that we wish for you to be filling into. This is much like what of the universe is expanding into. It is constantly filling into of itself. It is pushing out of the boundaries and then filling into of the boundaries. When you are having what you'd be calling an awakening moment, when you be having an elevation moment, what you are finding is you are pushing the field of self out. Then it is your responsibility to be of the filling in of the self. You are in a constant pushing out, expanding out and filling in of the self and expanding out and filling in of the self. This is part of the journey that you are experiencing here in this of the theme park experience in this of the moment.
Thank you so much, Amit, for
This
today.
is much of the love. We are wishing to be feeling into of yourself. We are inviting you to be feeling in of yourself. Much joy, much of the love to watch you be feeling in of the self. One of the things that you can be of the doing is listening into the invitation to be feeling in of the self. You will be feeling much more of the happiness. You'll be feeling much more of the joyness when you be feeling in of the self. Much of the joy, much of the love.
Much love. Thank you.
Oh, hello.
How are you? How are you
I'm all
feeling?
right. I'm good. Oh,
Interesting that was about you feeling unsafe as a channel, even
mm,
though you've been doing it for so long in terms of judgment and
mm.
do you want to expand on what was going on for you?
Oh, I don't know what was going on. I'm feeling a bit sad now. I don't know why. Just feeling a bit
Mm,
emotional about whatever played out. So,
yeah, because it is courageous. I mean,
yeah.
bringing Ahmed forward and speaking in this way is
Mm,
courageous because
mm.
this is not the way we've been brought up.
No.
And just this last week, there were three comments. It's interesting that you felt unsafe because just this
Oh,
last week, there were three comments on the most recent video that said from three different people, "Oh, I've just found a new cult."
right. Okay. That's interesting. I hadn't
Yeah.
read them actually. So,
So it's
yeah.
interesting that you had that parallel
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
feeling
kind of
because
interesting.
you must have tapped into that energy somehow.
Must have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's weird.
Um, and
Wow.
so I was interested in my reaction too, because something like that in the past would have really bothered
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
I would have gone really defensive.
Mm.
And it was like, I did not care. It was like,
Yeah.
this is not for you, obviously.
No. And that's okay.
That's
That's
okay.
fine.
There are plenty of people who tell us that
Yeah,
your transmissions are exactly what they needed to hear.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
more and more
Yeah.
people are subscribing. And so
That's great.
So if you resonate with Marcus's channeling, it would really help the message get out to the right people if you do
Yeah.
subscribe. So please subscribe and comment so that this message is transferred to the people who are supposed to hear it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
this comes from, I just wanted to make this point that both myself and Marcus are not getting paid for this time.
No, no,
We're doing this for service to others. We're not selling at the back end of this
no.
any
I
any.
haven't even thought of that.
So Marcus and myself give our time to
Yeah,
produce these episodes, and before putting them out as a podcast, we did it just on YouTube as just it's
absolutely.
just something we love doing. We love talking about um, through the lens of a high dimensional being, these beautiful concepts that we're all moving through right now. And
Mm,
it's
mm.
heart based and it comes from our heart. And if you sit there
Yeah, yeah.
and feel into it, you will know that it does come from our heart.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Amit comes from a quite different space to a lot of channels and a lot of things out there. It's a very from a dimensional space. She talks a lot about dimensional space, and I get hundreds, like pages and pages of information every week on stuff from a dimensional nature. I mean, we can't even start to cover even a tenth of it, and maybe I don't know, maybe we can talk a bit about it sometime. But there's just lots of information that comes through about us as humans, and just things like what we're doing here and how we align more, how resonance, and some of the fundamental things that affect us, and how do we counter that effect and stabilize into that effect. She's often talking about that because she's trying to, as much as you and I are doing this because we love doing it and we're here to share, she's doing the same, just sharing. Here's another way to look at life and look at things, and help you to grow in consciousness and awareness and connect in deeper. And I don't think that those sort of things ever end. The fun part about watching science, as an example, is, quantum physicists and astrophysicists are both looking at the most minute and the biggest things. And the more they look, the bigger and the smaller it gets. Like, it never ends. And I mean, the message is sort of the same. It's constantly expanding, and it's constantly showing us different ways to look at the world and to understand the world, and for us to step more fully into who we are because of that understanding. And
Yeah,
I think that's special.
very special. And it's always
Mm.
about that. It's always about expanding into who we really are, not who we
Yeah,
think we are, not who we're told we have to be, not who we think we need to be for others to like us and accept us, but
yeah,
who we really are. That's basically what it is all about.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, I have to say, we're motivated to do this because people get stuff out of it. I think that's motivator for both of us. We said, let's do this, and then people, give us those beautiful feedback that they got something out of it. It was the right message at the right time, and it's like, okay, then we keep doing this. If it's
Yeah,
helping one person, it's worth doing.
absolutely.
So thank
So
you.
thank you, Marcus, for having the courage to bring in, a transmission that sounds a little bit unusual,
Yeah,
and doing that and backing
yeah,
yourself and the reason you're here,
got to
um,
do it.
by doing the work. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Hey, thank you. Yay. We'll see you
Okay,
soon.
see ya.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Galactic Guidance. We hope that the messages that you receive from the higher realms have brought you clarity, insight, and comfort. Please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Remember to stay connected to your own inner guidance and trust the journey ahead.